Hey guys, welcome back to Trellis and Trails Homestead. I'm Jacqueline. If you hear a bunch of noise in the background, it's my water bath canner. It's releasing the steam, so sorry about that. Sloppy Joe sauce going in the water bath canner. So if you didn't check out the first video, go check that one out and you can see the whole process for the Sloppy Joe sauce. I have 6 cups of dried black beans. I soaked these in water overnight, but now we're going to bring this to a boil and then we're going to let them simmer for like 30 minutes. And while that's happening, I'm going to finish chopping up the veggies for it. So this is black bean soup. I am using this Homestead canning cookbook. I usually use the ball books, but I really like this one too. So the black bean soup recipe comes from this book. I already chopped up most of the ingredients. Just have a few more things to chop. In this bowl here, I have 3 onions chopped, 10 cloves of garlic, and those are minced, 4 carrots, diced, sweet potatoes. I'm going to chop up some bell peppers now and add to the bowl, and then we'll get the rest of the ingredients together. I'm really excited to try this one. I love black bean soup. I just never really think about making it. So again, this is a new recipe as well. This makes quarts. I think the recipe says that it makes 6 quarts, which is a lot of black bean soup. I thought about that yesterday when I was getting the dried beans out, the 6 cups of the dried black beans. I was like, wow, this seems like a lot of beans. Once it soaks up the water, it's a lot of beans. So it'll be a good, hearty, protein-rich soup. I think it says to dice the bell peppers. I think I'm going to make them a little smaller than what I just cut up. But I think them still being like decent sized will just add to the texture. So we're going to let our beans come up to a boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat and simmer it for 30 minutes. At the same time, we're cutting up our other ingredients, and then we're going to put those in a pot and bring to a boil as well. And then if they're not tender enough, don't worry about that because they'll get basically cooked during the canning process. So this recipe is a pressure canning recipe. Anything that's low acid food, anything that doesn't have vinegar added, doesn't have lemon juice, mostly vegetables that you're not pickling or things like that, and especially soups. Those are always pressure canned just because of the low acidity level in those. So that's why we're doing it that way versus the Sloppy Joe sauce was water bath canned. That recipe has apple cider vinegar in it, and it's very much tomato based. So that adds to your acidity and makes it safe to water bath can. This recipe would not be safe water bath canned. I do know there are some people who can, and if they don't have a pressure canner or a way to pressure can, they'll do water bath canning for like any recipe. They just do it for like 3 hours versus, 30 minutes or whatever it typically requires. If that's what you do, that's cool. But like I said, I was very much intimidated by canning when I first started, so I still very much follow all of the rules. People out there, they call them rebel canners if they do things a little different than what is required, but I think it just all comes down to your comfort level when it comes to safety in food. I don't think there's typically like those people are doing it wrong, but there are wrong ways to can, and you just don't want to do that because it really could be very unsafe, and you don't want to cause botulism and other things in your food. Just to go over it though, it's 6 cups of dried black beans, 3 chopped onions, 10 cloves of minced garlic. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of cumin, 2 tablespoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 3.5 cups of orange juice, 4 cups of vegetable broth or beef broth. I have vegetable broth. 4 cups of water, 4 diced carrots, 2 bell peppers diced, 2 sweet potatoes peeled and diced, and then 5 tomatoes. It says skinned, seeded, and chopped. Instead of actual tomatoes, I'm going to use some diced tomatoes. I think that'll just be easier, and I didn't pick up any regular tomatoes at the store. Let's be honest, I didn't pick up anything at the store. I got a grocery delivery this morning because that's how we roll around here. So let me get the diced tomatoes. So I'm just going to do 2 cans. These are the 15-ounce, 14.5-ounce jars, cans. I'm just going to do 2 of these. Let me run downstairs to my pantry and get my vegetable broth. Be right back. I figured I would just take you guys down into my basement, pantry, canning pantry, whatever. It's a huge crawl space. You can see we have a lot of storage, and I do have to crawl down here, but it's actually really perfect for my canning goods. As you can see, the temperature stays pretty cool down here, 58 degrees. So these are always cool, and you really want to keep your jars in like a cool, dark location. So I have some vegetable broth down here. We're going to grab that. As you can see, I'll do a whole video on my canning pantry at some point, but look at this. These are all store-bought ingredients. Not all of them. This bottom shelf mostly is. And then over here too, some store-bought stuff. Your canning pantry does not have to be, or whatever pantry you have, does not have to be all home canned, homemade ingredients. I do still buy things from the store. Our beans are just now starting to boil, so we'll let those continue. So yeah, your ingredients, your foods, what you have does not have to all be homemade. I think I went into canning and this level of homesteading that I'm at right now about 2 years ago when we bought our house, and I thought I could just make and, you know, have everything homemade. And of course you still have to buy stuff from the store, right? We live in a neighborhood, so we don't have meat that we're raising, or we don't have chickens right now or anything like that. So other than my garden, and I do a pretty big garden in the summer, that's the only thing I'm growing. I'm making my own bread from, you know, sourdough. I'm preserving what I can from the garden. But otherwise, there are still things I have to buy from the store. With that being said, I do buy a whole lot less stuff from the store than I used to buy. You know, with bread, we make our own pizza dough, loaves of bread, focaccia. I'm going to start making more bagels. I'm going to do some hamburger buns. But otherwise, as I mentioned in the last video, all of my veggie scraps I save in the freezer, and then I can up these either quart or pint jars of vegetable broth. You can do chicken broth, you can do beef broth. I don't typically have like bones for that stuff. I feel like veggie broth is a little more versatile too, because I can add it to anything. Beef, we're not really eating chicken right now, but like chicken or other, you know, meat dishes, whatever you're making, soups. And I feel like you can flavor this how you want it, and then it doesn't have the flavor of like either chicken broth or beef broth. It's very versatile. So we're going to use a full 4 cups, the full quart jar for this black bean soup. Also, even though something has already been canned, you can open it and basically use it in another recipe and recan it. That's totally safe. This was canned in April of 2022. I have, I think, 3 more of these quarts, or maybe this is I think I have 2 more of these quart jars on my shelf. And probably about every like 6 months or so right now, I'm making more veggie broth from the scraps that I have in the freezer. So it'll be time here soon to do more veggie broth. I do have a bunch of pints down there. I probably have, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 pints right now. And sometimes I'd rather use a pint because I don't always need a full quart jar of broth, right? If I wasn't going to use this whole thing, but this was all that I had, I would just toss the rest of it in the freezer after opening it. So none of it goes to waste. So we're going to go ahead and get our other ingredients in this pot and get them boiling as well. It says bring to a boil and boil gently for 5 minutes. While our beans are boiling, let's go ahead and do this. It just says put all the remaining ingredients in a pot. We're just going to toss these all in. This does have the minced garlic in it, but I do need to add all of the other spices. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Let's add our veggie broth. I was supposed to get a jar opener for Christmas, but I never found the one that I wanted. I just want a simple one, and it seems like the ones I was finding are just a little bit more than what I was wanting. So I still haven't gotten it, and how helpful would it be? I just always have a hard time opening my jars because the seals are so good. There we go. We're just going to toss the veggie broth in. Also, I'm going to get 4 cups of water. Let me grab you for a second. Cherry, my sweet, is here to make an appearance. She has a really hard time when I'm in the kitchen all day. She does not like it when I'm not on the couch cuddling with her. Hi. I know. I know. She's telling me all about it. Let's get the spices going. Let me grab those real quick. So we're going to get cumin, salt, pepper, cayenne, 3.5 cups of orange juice. I'm just going to use this jar because it has cup measurements on it. So these are 4-cup jars. So we're going to do 3.5. And that is like all of my orange juice. 1 step left. So we'll add the orange juice in too. That's interesting. I don't think I ever would have thought to add orange juice to my black bean soup, but I'm actually pretty excited about trying it. Let's add in these diced tomatoes. This pot is going to be overflowing soon. I don't think I'm going to drain these at all. Just add in the extra juice. Need a bigger pot. Oh yeah, this is like full. 2 tablespoons of salt. I'm just going to use this coarse kosher salt because that's all that I have right now. It seemed to work out fine with the sloppy Joe sauce. So, and then I don't have ground pepper, so it only calls for a teaspoon. So I'm just going to grind some pepper in here. If you're around for the first recipe, the sloppy Joe sauce, you'll know that we doubled it. We're definitely not doubling this one. This is a lot of ingredients already. So, and like I said, it makes 6 quart jars. So that's quite a bit of soup. That'll last us a while. A teaspoon of cayenne. I don't really measure out my ingredients or my spices sometimes. I either just eyeball it or add whatever I want because we like a lot of spice. So if there's extra, it's okay. And then 2 tablespoons of cumin. I'll use the tablespoon measurement just since I have it out for this one. That's a lot of cumin. Yes, you want to add a lot of flavor to your beans though. That might have been a little bit over 2 tablespoons. So bring to a boil and boil gently for 5 minutes. I'm going to have to watch this closely because it's super full. So we'll just mix all this in. Keep an eye on it. Bring it to a boil and then we'll simmer it for a little bit. Like I said, these peppers and onions and things are not going to be as tender as you would think going into the jars, but that's okay because it's going to get pressure canned for 90 minutes. So if you think about it, if it's in the pressure canner getting basically cooked that whole time, these ingredients are going to be tender for sure once you go to open it. So our beans are also just starting to boil. It's taken a while because they're in such a big stock pot here. I'm just going to give them a little stir. While these 2 things are doing their thing, I'm going to wash up the quart jars and just make sure I have everything ready to get these canned. So our black beans are done, and our veggies as well. So let's just go ahead and heat our jars up in the canner. So we're gonna be pressure canning this time for black bean soup, not acidic, so it needs to be pressure canned. So you can see it's blinking on pressure can. We're gonna select. We're doing quarts, so it's gonna be 90 minutes. That's what it says in the book and the recipe. I'm not gonna get into like if you're using a stovetop pressure canner because I've never used one of those. But I do know that you have to adjust for altitude for those. You do not have to adjust for altitude for this electric pressure canner for pressure canning. For water bath canning you do, but not for pressure canning. So 90 minutes and it adjusts altitude automatically. So we're gonna go forward with that. So we need to heat our jars up, and I'm using quarts. Unfortunately, my canner, the maximum jar capacity for regular mouth quart jars is only 5. I tried to, I have 4 in here right now. I tried to sneak all 6 in there just to see if it would fit, and it definitely doesn't. So there is a minimum capacity for pressure canning, which is at least 2 jars. So since I have what's probably gonna be 6 quart jars total, I'm gonna just can with the 4 quart jars first and then do the other 2 after that. If I have a little bit extra, then I may toss a pint in as well. And that'll be fine, but we're just gonna start with the 4 for now. So let's get these jars warming. You can't really tell, I filled them half full with water, and we'll go ahead and warm them, and then we'll add our black bean soup. So I'm gonna seal this down, and our regulator is not on here yet. We are gonna use the regulator, this little piece, for pressure canning because that's how the pressure builds up in the pot. But we're not gonna put that on until we're actually at the canning point. So to warm the jars, we don't have the regulator on. And then once we get to the actual canning part, we'll pop it on there. So my phone did die, and I went ahead and added the 4 quarts of the beans to the canner and started it, heating up, getting ready to do the actual canning. So now, since we're pressure canning, it says to put regulator on so it can start the canning process. So we have our regulator here, and we're just gonna pop it on to the can position. And then we'll hit start. And it's gonna can for 90 minutes like it says. Again, it takes like an hour and a half to cool down and bring the pressure down afterwards. And you don't do anything with this, with the regulator. I know it shows like vent versus can. I think that's just so that you can leave it on, but I don't leave it on. I pop it off when I'm not using it for pressure canning, just because it's easier that way. But as long as it's in the can position, it's gonna do what it needs to do in the pressure canning mode. Hey guys, I didn't finish signing off this video last night because these came out of the canner pretty late, and I also had some friends over. So we ended up getting 6 quarts of the black beans and veggie soup out of the canner. I only have 5 here because I gave one to my friend last night. So what I did with the extra veggies was just canned up 2 pints of those, and then 1 whole quart as well. I think my plan for that for now is to just add it to soups or crock pot meals when I make those. But in the future, when I make this recipe again, I'll actually do probably 2 cups of black beans per jar, so that then I have more room for veggies. I think that would be a good ratio. So we'll do that next time. So water bath canning is really pretty quick. You just set the timer, and it doesn't have to like come back down from pressure or anything, so you can just take the jars right out when they're done. But for pressure canning for these, you have to do the 90 minutes or whatever the recipe calls for, and then you have to wait about an hour and a half to be able for the pressure canner to cool down to be able to take the jars out, since it's under pressure at that point. So that's why these took a while, especially if you have to do more than 1 batch. It just takes some time with the cool down stage in between. So excited to have these also to add to the pantry shelf. I'm also really excited to try this black bean soup. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'm so excited to make more videos like this. Let me know if you like them. Canning videos, recipes, sourdough. I want to incorporate some camping videos too, so let me know how you feel about that. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.